All right. Good evening. Good evening. Can you confirm that you are able to hear me? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Just a few technical difficulties here this evening, but it's okay because we are going to have our webinar. Thank you all so much for joining me, and thank you for your patience here. So we are going to have our webinar here this evening. Our webinar for today is on classrooms. All right, our webinar for today is on classrooms. So what I'm going to do is take you through the journey of classrooms. I'm going to show you how classrooms are set up, and I am going to show you how to use your classroom, how to utilize your classrooms within GMetrix. All right. So, and I also, right, I also will be showing you. We do have additional webinars coming up this month. Next week we have our integrations webinar. And next week, we do have our integrations webinar. And this webinar will show you what the integrations look like the LTI integrations and the common cartridge integrations. Those integrations allow your students to access the GMetrix curriculum very easily, access the GMetrix curriculum by going through your LMS. So we will have that webinar on next week that I will show you what that looks like. The following week, we will have a webinar September the 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have a webinar on the educator journey. So we will show you what it looks like as the educator to access. All right. I am aware that you cannot see my screen here. There is nothing being shared on the screen at this moment. I am about to share it now. I do not have my camera on because the camera makes the internet run slower. So there will be no camera. There we will be having this webinar. It is being recorded and it will be available on YouTube following the webinar. All right. We do post all of our webinars on YouTube, past and present, past and future webinars. I'm sorry, past and future webinars on our YouTube page. And our YouTube page is GMetrix Official. I do also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. I do also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook so that you are able to keep up with our latest releases as well as our upcoming releases, as well as our webinars that we will be having. All right. If at any time during the webinar you have questions, at the top of the screen there, that is where you will post questions, any questions that you have. It has a question mark there, and you will utilize that to post any questions that you may have. I do, in those questions, I will, at the end of the webinar, I will read those questions out loud and answer them for you. I will also, yep, those questions will be read aloud and answered for you. I do also want to encourage you to check out our GMetrix support page at support.gmetrix.net. Our support page is where you can create a support ticket and check the status, but we also have a variety of articles here on how to utilize GMetrix. These articles, they have pictures and videos with them as well as step-by-step directions. I'll click on one so that you can see it here. There's the video for it, and that's the long version of creating a classroom. And then we have the shorter version, the tutorial for creating the classroom, along with the step-by-step directions, as well as the pictures. Our YouTube page, the GMetrix official YouTube page. Again, this is where all of our past and future webinars will be housed at, as well as some additional videos. To find our webinar schedule, you can go to the GMetrix admin dashboard at manage.gmetrix.net, and right on that dashboard, you will see a calendar. There we go. Right on the dashboard, you will see the calendar. And if you click on the webinar, then you are able to, if you click on the date, you're able to see the webinar and register for it. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Again, I do want to remind you that if you have any questions during the webinar, then there's a questions tab at the top that you are able to put your questions. And at the end of the webinar, I will read the questions, read them out loud, and I will answer them. We also have someone in the background that is answering questions as well. So classrooms. All right. So many of you are familiar with GMetrix, and you are familiar with, in the past, we have used access codes. Now, classrooms and access codes differ because with classrooms, you are able to create one code, and within that one code, you are able to add your course content, your course, as well as your practice exams. Another great thing is that you are able to see your students within your class, manage them, and monitor their progress on that courses and those practice exams, all within your classroom. Additionally, you are able to add additional instructors so that they can monitor your progress in your classrooms. But the greatest thing is that classrooms are created with 4 easy steps. The first thing I'm going to do is choose classrooms. And with classrooms, you're able to see all of your classrooms, and you'll also be able to see the classrooms for your school. Now, when you click on classrooms, if yours does not look like this, what you will need to do is go to the top of your screen and click there where it says new version. All right. If you click on classrooms and yours does not look like this, if it doesn't say classrooms up here and have the new classroom button, go to the top and click new version. Make sure that's green. So to create a new classroom, I'm going to choose new classroom, and I'm going to name my classroom. You can name your classroom for the period that it is, or you can name your classroom for the product that you will be, the program that you'll be teaching. I'm going to name mine GS6, and I'm going to name it period 1. You are not required to enter a max number of students there, nor an identifier. And this is great because we know that we get new students throughout the year. And with access codes, you had to put a max in. And if you got a new student and you were out of codes, you had to create a new one. But we don't have to do that anymore. You can absolutely put a max number of students here, but it's not necessary. And for the identifier is optional, and I'll show you what that means. So I'm going to click Create Classroom. This is going to be the code that you give to your students. It's going to be your last name and then 6 digits. All right. It's going to be your last name and then 6 digits. That's going to be the code that you give to your students. Now, for the identifier, if you don't want it to be your last name, say you want it to be your program, whether it be GS6, Adobe, Microsoft, you click on that pencil there, and then you can change it and choose Save. So now the code that you give your students is going to be GS6P1 dash those 6 digits rather than it being your last name in those 6 digits. Next, we're going to add our content. And by selecting content here, and then we have the choice to select content, link to an access code, or copy an existing classroom. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select content, and then we're going to choose add content. All right. And once we choose add content, then what is going to happen is that any content that we have available to us is going to show up here. So you might have a lot of programs. That just means that your school has purchased a lot of programs. But so you want to choose the program that you have access to. You want to click the checkbox to the left of the program, but click expand selected items. All right. You want to click expand selected items. All right, and click, because you want to see what's in that code. You don't want to add everything in there. You want to make sure that you are aware of what you're adding in there. So I'm going to add my course there, and then I'm going to add my test. All right, so what I'm going to do, I've shown you how to expand it. Now I'm going to show you how to collapse it. You just checkbox, and you can collapse it. It's collapsed. So I'm going to uncheck it, and I'm going to go to what it is that I would like to add. I'm going to add my level 2 course here. All right, and you see those tests because those tests are custom tests. And the great thing about this also is you can add your custom tests here. And when you're adding custom tests, you see it says others. These are custom tests that others in your school have created that are on the same topic. If it says custom test mine, that's going to be a custom test that you created. So if you create a custom test, you're able to come back to here and add that custom test, or you can assign a custom test from the custom test tab. I'm going to click save, and this is a pop-up exclusive to me. And you see here's my content, my course, and my practice test. It's in pending status because I have not yet completed my save to the classroom. So I need to click save again over here. Now my course and my practice test have been saved. I want to make sure that you are aware that if you click on your course, if you have any of the courses and you click on them, this is where you will be able to access your teacher resources. That's going to be your workbook and your support files. All right. So this is where you're going to be able to access your teacher resources. And then you have your practice exams. You are able to put a future start date as well as a due date on those practice exams. The great thing about that is that your students will still be able to see them within the student dashboard, but they won't be able to access them. They will not be able to access them until you put the start date on them that you would like for them to start. All right, so that's how you create your classroom. Now, I see someone saying that they don't have the classrooms category. Do we need to do something to make it show up? So there are a few things that you can check in order to make your classrooms category show up. It depends on, I'm trying to see yours. It might be looking from your email address. It might be because of the type of school that you are at, but confirm because I'm just looking at your email address. That's what I'm saying. Yours might say groups there, or you might need to check your permissions, or they might have it set up a different way. I would encourage you to contact our support for that. If you see groups, click on groups. You know, click on groups. If you do not see groups, I do encourage you to contact the GMetrix support, and they can assist you with that. You can also check your permissions. Someone at your school will have to give you permissions. If you don't have it, then anybody at your school who has access to the managed dashboard can give you permission for classrooms. They can just go to your name, go to your account, and then permissions, go to their name, click my account, and then the permissions will come up. They can add those permissions. All right, so this is how you create your classroom. And what I'm going to do, I am going to open a classroom that I have created. And with this, I am going to show you what it looks like once students are added to your classroom. I'm going to open my Big Bird first period classroom. All right, and so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you reports. Again, the great thing about Classroom, you are able to see reports for your students right here within your classroom. No need to go anywhere else. You do have filters on here where you can choose testing mode and training mode. And I like to keep mine at testing mode because testing mode, they do not have help. So it's going to be a true account of what it is that your students know. And then we have latest best average. I keep mine at latest because, that's, their last score, they should be increasing their score and doing better as they go along. You want to select your category, and that's going to be the program that you are working with. And then select your product, because some of our programs have more than one product. Like Adobe will have Photoshop and InDesign. Our GS6 here has different levels. Microsoft has different products within it. And you see here, I am able to see my students' progress on their course. And this progress, this is not a score. This is their progress. So that means anything that's auto graded, that's what's being accounted for here. Again, it's not a score. It's just showing you they've completed it with mastery. So Bert and Ernie have completed 98% of those items that are auto graded with that mastery, with the required amount of mastery. What you also are able to see are their scores on the practice exams here. And if you scroll down, you're able to see a skill tree. And what the skill tree does, it tells you the proficiency of your students. So you're able to see the proficiency based on the topic. And these topics do align with the certification exam objectives. You're able to see their proficiency on the objectives. And now, so you see 31% on the topic, 29% on this objective. And if you open the objective, you're able to see their proficiency on the individual questions. You're able to see the question ID, the question topic, and the question STEM. All right, so that's giving you more information on what your students are doing as a class. So you can use these question IDs or the topics, and you can create custom tests using that information. These reports are printable and exportable. So if you look, we do have the export and the print options for these reports within your classroom. All right, now let's look at what it looks like for our students within our classroom. Within our classroom for our students, if you click on students, you'll be able to see everybody in your classroom, their name, their email, their last login, and you'll also be able to click for details for that particular student. Once you're within details, you have a few options. You're able to add accessibility features. This is where you're going to be able to extend their time. It will automatically double their time. They'll be able to use the keyboard to navigate through, the student dashboard. They will also be able to have contrast, highlighting, and a big cursor there. You're able to see reports and activities for your students. You're able to see reports and activities for your students as well. And with the reports and activities, you're able to see the information for the individual students. Okay, so this is going to be based on the individual student. And I'm going to go here to my program. Over here where it has products, that's only going to be the products that the students are enrolled in, that student is enrolled in. So if that student is enrolled in, say, an Adobe class and a Microsoft class at the same time, you'll see that here. But if they're only enrolled in one, that's all you're going to see here is that one. So when you click on to choose the product, you are able to see everything that the student has taken. Again, this is exportable. You click on it and open it up. I'm able to see the date that they took this practice test, their score on the practice test, and how many times they took this practice test. If I click on details, I'm able to see the actual score report for the same score report that the student sees within the student dashboard. All right, so I'm able to see that information. But if I go further, I also have a skill tree for this particular student. Now in classrooms, it's based on the overall class, but here in students, it's based on that individual student. And it is color coded, with red meaning that they have under 50% proficiency. Yellow means that they have 51 to 80% proficiency. And green means that they have over 80% proficiency. And just as in classrooms, you're able to click on the topic and click on that objective, see that individual proficiency, the question ID number, the topic, and the STEM for that question. So you can have conversations, you can help the student with, you can utilize that information to help the student. So that is your GMetrix Classrooms. And again, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the YouTube page. We do also have step-by-step directions on our support page where you can look and see the directions as well as the pictures and tutorial for how to create your classrooms. I'm going to go now and answer some of the questions in the chat. All right. There was another question in regards to not being able to see classrooms. I believe that they answered that in the background. But it doesn't have to be IT. It's just anybody at your school with a GMetrix admin account. All right. So there in classrooms there was no I need some clarification on the question from Maria Bradley. It says I started using classrooms and now the review missed questions button has disappeared. Is that gone completely? Let me see. I need some clarification on that. Let me make sure, because there was no review missed questions button within the classroom. Now, within the classrooms, what you do have is the option to, and I'll open my classroom here, and I'll go to content. And what you do have is the option to take off the testing mode, training mode, question review, and study guide. You want to make sure that that's checked. If that might be what you're speaking of there. If so, you want to make sure that that is checked within your classroom so that your students will have that option. All right, I have a question that says, how do you add content? So to add content to your classroom, from your details page, when you click create classroom, what's going to happen is you'll have the extra tabs here and you'll be able to click on content and you'll click add content. There'll be a button that says select content. You choose that and then you choose add content. And then you're able to see the content and choose what you would like within your classroom. Choose save, and then you want to make sure to choose save again. You want to make sure to choose save both times, because otherwise anything that you add is going to be in a pending status, and it'll say pending here, and it will not be added into your classroom until you click save on this page. So you want to make sure that you click both of those save buttons. You want to make sure that you click it twice. All right, can we see which question in a test were the most missed by students so that I can remediate around those? So when you are in your classroom, that's the question. I'll read it again. It says, can we see which question in a test were the most missed by most students so that I can remediate around those? So within your classrooms, you want to go over to reports. And if you go down to your skill tree, you want to select your category, and then select your product, and then go down to that skill tree, and you'll be able to see your students' proficiency on there. And if you go into their proficiency, you'll see the proficiency for the objective, and go on into that proficiency, and it'll tell you the proficiency for that particular question, and then it'll tell you how many times the questions were they did the question 18 times and they got it right 7 of those times. So that you could utilize that. And like with this one they did the question 21 times and they got it right six of those times. So you can utilize that to determine which questions your students need remediation on. Okay, so we saw how to add content. Okay, so here's another question. In the new student interface, is it easy for them to find where to join our class after we provide the code? So when they're in the new student interface, if it's their first time logging in, then it's going to have redeem code right there. Right there. It'll be right there. If it's not their first time logging in, they have two options here on the left. It'll say redeem code. And then on the main screen, there will also be a tab that says redeem code. So that's how it'll do. But if it's their first time logging in, once they log in, they'll see the banner and it will say redeem code right there. The next question, what is the cloud access option? Cloud access option, it allows for some of the tests to be available within the cloud rather than, say, if you're doing Microsoft, rather than if say your students are using a Chromebook, it'll give you that option. That's something that's additional. You'll have to work with your support rep to find that. All right, where or how do we find or generate student login information? All right, so your students, when they go to the student dashboard at gmetrix.net, that's where they can generate, where they can create their accounts. They can use sign up or they can sign in with single sign on through Clever, Google, or Microsoft. If your students already have an account, then you can go through your classroom and click students. All right, so I'm in my classroom here and I'm on students. I can choose my student. And I'm going to click details for my student. Once you click the details for your students, it's going to be right there where you, here we go, where you'll be able to see their username there. You'll be able to see their username right there. You can reset their password by clicking reset password, but this is where you'll be able to see your student login information. But they'll go to gmetrix.net and create their own logins. So the question is, when my students go to GMetrix through Jasper Active, they do not see the new version. They'll need to log into gmetrix.net in order to see that. If they go to gmetrix.net and log in, they'll have the new version. All right. It looks like I have answered all of the questions. Again, this will be posted on YouTube for you to view later. This will be posted on YouTube for you to view later. I have, oh, let me see. I'm sorry, there's one more question I see. Do we have to put in a student number? I'm not sure what you are referring to, but it looks like it has been answered. Okay. Yeah. So they say you don't have to put in a student number. It's an optional field. Yeah. But this with this information, this is not, you can create accounts for your students, but yeah, the student number is optional when you are creating when you're creating the students accounts. All right. And one last question. It says, what is beta access? Beta access is where when we are testing new versions and new things that you get early access to it. That's what like my demo account, we have demo accounts that we utilize that with, that's beta access. You won't have that option on yours. You will not have that option on yours. All right. Thank you all again for joining us. Just want to remind you next week, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we do have another webinar, and that webinar is going to be on integrations. You can go to your dashboard in manage.gmetrix.net and click on the webinar, click on integrations. You can see our full calendar, but you can click on integrations and it will take you to register for that webinar. This is where I will be showing you what LMS integration looks like. I do want to remind you, we do have our YouTube page that has past and future webinars on it. And we have our support page at support.gmetrix.net. This page has lots and lots of articles with pictures and videos and step-by-step directions for you to be able to utilize different aspects. You can also create a support ticket on this page. Thank you all for coming and thank you for your patience. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening.